Hello, thanks for joining the session. Before we move forward, let me just give you an agenda of this session. As all of you know, the session is primarily about how do we deal with the way how the DevOps, whoever is choosing for their career into the DevOps. And this session can help you people to understand about how this DevOps tutorial and what are the concepts that we have in DevOps and what is the Azure DevOps is primarily is about and how the components or what are the different components of Azure, and that's what we're going to see. And along with that, we'll also take a look at maybe a small activity of hands-on of logging into Azure DevOps page, and we will see how do we take it forward. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let's move on. So how people used to work earlier, whenever when we look at something called the developer environment, people used to have multiple different environments where the developers used to create their development environment and does their all their development work. So whenever they have some user acceptance testing or you wanted to implement some UAT or anything, and they will end up with using some of the other concepts like UAT or anything, right? And it used to be a lengthier or time-taking process to make sure that they will be able to resolve all the dependencies. They will be able to make sure that all the dependency components will be deployed, and they also may have to make sure that whatever the code they did and will also work very well without having any issues in the different environments. And also, it used to be a little difficult for all different organizations when you're in a particular organization. So there used to be different teams and everything. So in order to make sure that all these components will be stitched together, where we will maintain the code and we will plan the things accordingly in structured way, and we'll build it, we will do the testing. Any code that you write, any IDE that you use, whatever the code base that you use, right? So you'll be able to make use of these different tools or different technologies which can be assembled back together, and where you will be capable of maintaining the code and deploying them, integrate them with the different environments, and making sure that a developer life can be easy, and all your deployment and all your development phase, and each and every phase will have less dependencies, so that the developers or either people who are working on the individual projects don't have to spend so much of time. And of course, along with that, there are also a lot of tools which are created in order to achieve this. We cannot expect that every organization will work with the same approach or same way. That's where there are different tools, different code repositories which are created, different IDEs that can help us to work. And if you want to maintain your code, as you can see, we have GitHub, which is very famous, and Jira, right? And in order to build, we have Maven or Ansible, right? There are a lot of activities, and even if you want to test it, either you want to do unit testing, you can make use of any of the IDEs. Wherever, if you want to deploy the code in any of the environment, you can do your deployments containing the creators, containing the virtual VMs, Ansible, likewise. There are the different tools that can help organizations to take care of multiple activities. And if you want to monitor them, how these things are happening, you can also make use of them along with these tools. So what are the tools or different stages that we have? So DevOps process altogether will have different stages: version controls, continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. So what is version control? Version control is something which is primarily will be handled whenever in a particular team, whenever there are multiple peoples or multiple developers who will be working, and they will make sure that a code will be deployed into a particular repository. And if there are any issues with respect to the code clashes or anything, which can be maintained from the multiple versions. Even if there are any changes that needs to be reverted back to any of the well-known status, it will the version control tools that we have seen like Git or anything will continue to maintain the different versions, so that it can be taken, it can be referred from those places. Continuous integration, because as I said, so whenever you will going to do your development, it might be places that okay may have to do your integrations with respect to different environments, be it unit testing, be it system testing, unit testing, or the user acceptance testing, likewise. And every environment will have their own dependencies or different environments, be it maintaining keys, be it maintaining passwords or secrets or certificates or anything, to make sure that every access, everything will be enabled properly. And those things will be taken care from here, continuous integration. And there are also continuous delivery part and deploying the build wherever you want to deploy them after resolving all the issues which can be taken care from the delivery. And last but not least, you also have continuous deployment, and you'll end up with deployment, doing the production deployments of a number of components with a number of dependencies, a number of all the libraries and all the packages and everything can be deployed, and without you spending so much of time, which can be taken care from the continuous deployment. So these are the multiple stages that you will have. On top of it, you may also wanted to monitor all these things as well. It's not about implementing how you easily can manage them, how easily you can access them. So in order to keep all these multiple components together at a single place, those people who are going to work in Azure platform, Azure has came up with Microsoft Azure has came up with something called cloud service, has came up with Azure DevOps process, where Azure has its own advantage of having its main DevOps capabilities, and even as Microsoft Azure as a product itself has came up with a lot of capabilities, like you can have PaaS capabilities, .NET capability, security offerings, and all of the cloud connectivity activities, integrated environment, etc., etc. So all these options are can be mentioned in a single umbrella called Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft Azure itself has got different components, as I said. So in case if you want to add so many features, yes, you can go for all the scalable or scale out options beyond what you use, and you can only focus on what are the things that you need, either be it a PaaS system or infrastructure as a system or whatever it is, which can be taken care from Azure itself as a cloud system, as a cloud vendor. Okay. Now, so what are the different domains which you can work with? Be it any organization or be it any domain which takes care of compute, migrations, network, security, compliances, messages, or databases, etc., etc. Almost every domain will have their own requirement of dealing with the concepts. Even if we talk about cloud technologies, also will be purely depending on these containerization. How do we deploy them? Which is where DevOps process is the very important aspect in the cloud systems. So when it comes to something called DevOps process, what are the different components that we have? So there are different components or DevOps that we have in the Azure DevOps. So you can also see Azure boards, Azure artifacts, Azure pipelines, Azure repos, Azure test plans. So these are the multiple components which Azure DevOps process itself will provide. Let's talk about each and every individual concept which is available in Azure. So when we talk about Azure boards is a place where we can have multiple work items created, like user stories, features, tasks that can be created. We can create multiple sprints where which can help us to track what exactly are the efforts which are spent by individual people, what are the tasks which are getting completed on a daily basis, and we can continue to monitor the overall status by creating different dashboards so that it will become easy for a low level developers to, right? Also, for a very high level management people to manage their entire project in a single page. So this is something which can be used to maintain your project work and how to keep a track of all the individual components are working. Okay, so which is about Azure dashboards, and you can also see how we can create work items. How we'll be able to. We'll also do a demo of how exactly we can deal with this creating work items and everything. Okay, and we also have boards so that can help us to customize whatever the way that we want to create different boards by adding multiple components so that you can keep a track of what is blocking, what is current dev system, what are the components which are getting implemented. So multiple things can be forwarded here. You can also create a list of backlogs in case you want to continue to spend some more time on the future aspects. You can also create the backlogs as well. As I said, at the same time, you can also create your sprints so that individual developer level, individual task level, user story level tasks, and they spend time. Everything can be monitored. Everything can be verified from the sprints. Okay. So as I said, we can also provide managers in case if they want to review anything, they can also check these dashboards. And those dashboards can also help us to give the individual level or task level or user story level have metrics which can make people to manage their things very easily. Okay, which is something which all these things can be created from the Azure dashboards itself. Okay. So once the bulk dashboard is done, and we have something called Azure repos, and this also contains maintaining multiple code repositories. Multiple developers can continue to use them, which is what, as I said, Git repository or anything, which is what similarly people have seen it. Okay. So and apart from that, we also have artifacts, where artifacts is the one which is actually can help us to kind of like add multiple artifacts, multiple dependencies, and whatever the way that you want to implement your DevOps process, which you can add it. And when it comes to structured learning at a rate, like as I said, considering the fact that you'll end up with learning these multiple components, when it comes to Eureka learning, and in case if any one of you want to become a DevOps expert, there is also a roadmap which is given. Okay, so where you can see that there are multiple components that will be learning. Introduction to Microsoft Azure Solution Architect is the first one, and then you'll go to Azure Virtual Machine Networking, and then you're going to learn VMs and VM scalability zones, and you will continue to have hands-on session for each and every component. We also have apps and app services, and then you will move to something called advanced or Azure hybrid connectivities, which can help you to do all the site recovery. How do you connect from one network to another network, and storage solutions, and which means that what are the different ways you can deal with storages and storage accounts and everything. Azure Kubernetes especially concentrates on containerization. How do you orchestrate your containerization using Kubernetes? And we also have Active Directory, how do you, from an Azure side, how do you manage your access controls and everything, which can be taken care from here. As well as how do you monitor your Azure services, how do you make sure that you'll be able to create alerts and everything, which can be monitored from, which can be come up from Azure monitoring services. And then in case if there are any migrations that you wanted to do, you can also start creating your migration projects as well. So how do you do, how does people or organizations will do that as well? And it's also one of the components that you can learn. So that's what we have, that's what you people are going to learn as part of your structured learning, as part of Educator's primary course, in case any one of you have chosen to go. Okay. So in case if you wanted to get any Azure account, you can also use any of your personal accounts, and you can start registering for portal.azure.com. That can help you to create your Azure subscription. So by default, all of you will end up with getting somewhere close to $200 of free credit, which you can make use of those that particular free credit to continue to do your processes. In case if any one of you wanted to log in into Azure, so you can also go to Azure DevOps process. You can just search with Azure DevOps, or you need to search with or DevOps itself, and that you will be able to, that can help you to, you need to search for DevOps organization. You can go to these DevOps organizations. If you go to DevOps organization from the Azure portal, and you will be directed to your Azure DevOps, so that you can start creating your code repositories for any projects or anything. Then click on Azure DevOps organizations from here. Once you move to here, you can start creating your project. Okay, let me quickly open. Let me start creating the project. Here you will be able to see the DevOps project, and where once you create a project, and you will be able to see there is a project which is created. You can start creating your project name. The project name you can create either public or private, and then you can click on create a project. So there's going to create a project, and the project can continue to be used in case if you want to create a dashboard. When I start quickly creating it, I think there is already an DevOps project which is created. I just quickly open that so that we can make use of the sample one to see to what is happening. Now you see, if you go here, look at these samples. If you want to look at the overview, you can look at this overview. If you take a look at this, there is also boards which is present. Okay, you can also see these boards, and you can start creating your boards, and you can start adding all the components in case if you want to, which is pretty easy and very straightforward. So you can start creating a widget, and you can start creating your dashboards, anything that you want. You can start dragging from, and you can map everything. And all such activities can be handled from same items. And even if you see under the boards, you can see work items, boards, backlogs, spreads, queries, and query files, and everything can be created. You can also start creating your repositories from the repos. Once you create a repository, you can start creating a pull request. That pull request can help you to start creating multiple users to get it up code. You can control everything from settings itself. That is something that you can take care. And then when it comes to the CI/CD part, implementing the CI/CD, you can start creating your pipelines, releases, and all these things can be monitored from here. And your test plans can be added in case if you want to add your as part of a CI/CD. You want to make sure that you want to conduct some testing, and you want to make sure that those things can be automatically taken care. And you do your entire CI/CD process. Those are the components you can take care. You can start creating your test plans and everything, which can be taken care from the directly from the single board itself, single board itself. So that's one advantage that we have with it. So likewise, you can start creating your pipelines. You can start creating your test plans, in case if you want to keep a track of what is your runs and everything, which can be taken care. So if there are any third parties activities that you want to install and that you want to add as part of your DevOps process, which you can take care of it from these artifacts that you can see here. Likewise, you'll be able to make sure that you'll be able to add all these activities and all the boards which can be handled from here, and repositories. Your pull request, everything can be handled from here. You can maintain multiple branches, and you can start creating your pipelines, and pipelines can have multiple environments, and everything can be taken care of. So in case if you want to add members, you can go to your project settings, which is showed on the right left bottom, and you can start creating your teams. You can start adding permissions. You can start controlling your permissions, who has supposed to have access to individual components, and all those components can be handled from here. And you can also start creating your settings and different task management, start controlling your sprints, and everything can be maintained or can be handled from this particular page, which is also one of the single page that you can make use of, that can help us to do all these exercises. Okay, so that's pretty much that I have to cover in this session. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and all the very best for your DevOps career. Thank you.